folks. Hey, space cadets. Everyone that's not a space cadet, but I think that's everyone. Welcome to episode 30, which is nice, of Cosmos with Cosmos, where we ask the question, what is a planet? I'm excited about it.
Yeah, there need to be fireworks in this one. We've already had arguments.
It's going to get hot.
So I guess I'm Brandon.
I'm Liz.
I'm Mike.
Woo! Welcome to Cosmos with Cosmos. So yeah, I think right before this episode started, we had like a 5-minute conversation already about planets, and we kind of got into it a little bit. So this is going to be a fun episode. But before we really get into planetary discussion, we'd like to talk about what we're drinking. So Mike, what you got drinking?
I am drinking Pluto is not a planet right here. This basically is orange juice with mango, vodka, rum, coconut rum, since rum comes in all kinds of different flavors now. Coconut rum with cranberry juice and blue curacao. Yeah.
Looks suspiciously like your Taste the Rainbow from a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, but no grenadine.
Oh.
Yeah, so. Oh, and then the dogs are into it now.
That's fine.
We'll get to the rules later. We don't need to drink yet.
Yes,
all right, Liz,
yes.
what you got?
I have a PlanetClass Object. It's a little nod to any Digistar users out there. And it is basically cinnamon whiskey and peppermint tea. Because I wanted something warm.
Which you don't think goes together, but it does.
No, it goes. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So, Brandon?
Well, I'm kind of having the same idea. I have the Class M planet right here. Yes. So, of course, Class M being the terrestrial type of planet where it's habitable via the Star Trek universe. It's really one of my favorite usual drinks, which is cider, but instead of bourbon, it is Scotch whiskey and cider.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like
nice.
kind of up my game a little bit.
Hey.
It's delightful. Yes.
You got some scotch.
I know I do as my second drink. I do
drink
have
too?
I have some. I have some scotch waiting in the wings.
Anyway, don't forget to follow us on all the social medias, whether that's Twitter at Drinking Cosmos, Instagram Cosmos with Cosmos, and I think that's it. That's all we have for social medias. Okay, yeah. Well, get into the show. We have a couple of rules. Mm-hmm. Rule number 1: if you have or hear a puppy bark, we take a drink. Are you expecting any Amazon packages today?
Not today.
No, not
yesterday.
Today. I don't think so. But you never know. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Rule number 2: any Star Wars reference, take a drink. And of course, number 3, which is new as of last week, was it?
Sure.
I think it was last week. Sure. Any Lord of the Rings reference, we take a drink.
Oh man.
So yeah, we kind of put ourselves in the corner here.
Yeah, we did.
And there's one last update we want to do as well. Earlier this year, back in March, we had a thought experiment of what would happen if we sent a photon from the sun and just see how long it would travel throughout the episode. Well, we kind of kept tabs on it. And so now we're at 259 days later, and it has traveled 4.1 trillion miles, which is about 44.8 thousand astronomical units. It's a big number. I'm not quite sure what that means. It's still in the Oort cloud, so it's still within the realm-ish of the solar system.
So it's a photon. Since we launched Major Photon, that's his new name. I don't know why we didn't think of it earlier.
I know, right?
Major Photon. It hasn't even left our solar system.
I guess the sun's influence, yeah. So
or like crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man,
still in the Oort cloud.
Space is big, everyone.
Who would have thought it?
It is. But in its journey, it's only flown past 8 planets.
Oh damn! Let's do this, folks. Look at that segue. So Liz, since you're not taking a drink right now, why don't you walk us through the international definition as to what a planet is?
IAU.
Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, according to the International Astronomical Union, or IAU, a planet must need to satisfy 3 things. First, it needs to directly orbit the sun.
Easy enough. It's what we all thought about.
Yep.
Easy peasy.
Number 2, it has to be spherical.
What?
Yeah, that means it has to have basically enough mass where gravity essentially expends the least energy possible to shape it into a sphere.
So it's just a bunch of spherical bastards planets are.
Spherical bastards.
One of Mike's favorite sayings.
and number 3 is a planet has to have cleared its orbit.
All right. So what does that mean?
What the hell does that mean?
That means it's got to not be surrounded by a bunch of shit in its orbit around the sun. Now, do you want me to get into why Pluto's not considered a planet anymore? Based on those 3?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I mean, that's gonna. Okay, well, why? I should say why it does not fit the IAU definition, and then we can get into the argument
of if it's a planet or not. Okay, yeah. So Pluto, it directly orbits the sun. So check. That's great. Good for you, Pluto. Also, it's spherical. Hey, it's big enough to be a planet. However, the problem is Pluto is surrounded by billions of other objects in its orbit around the sun, those objects being comets. So it didn't clear its orbit as the solar system was forming. It didn't have time before the sun began its nuclear fusion and swept out all the smallest stuff, leaving what we got today. And so, according to the IAU, 2 out of 3, not good enough.
Not good enough.
Not a planet.
So what do we call it then?
So we call it a dwarf planet.
Dumbest fucking name ever.
Stupid. God, so confusing.
Dumbest
minor
name.
Planet? Isn't that also like an odd official phrase? Minor planet?
Well, the confusing part of it is people would be so confused, like in the planetarium, they'll be like, but it still is called a planet because it's a dwarf planet. And then I gotta,
Yeah. You know, here's my problem with the IAU definition, though. My problem with the definition that they came up with they approved on August 24th, 2006. Wow. Yep. A while ago, is that they do. All right. Well, first of all, also, the IAU definition went to great pains to say this applies to our solar system only.
Yeah.
Anything going around another star is called an exoplanet, and it's just called an exoplanet. It's not. They don't.
They're like we don't have time to deal with that.
We're not getting into that shit right now.
Let's
do... That's for the next meeting. No. So my problem is they did not quantify what clearing the orbit means.
Like how much stuff left in the orbit?
Yeah, they don't define it because you can look at Jupiter and you can technically say, well, Jupiter hasn't cleared its orbit because there are the Trojan asteroids that precede it and follow it in its orbit, right? You could say the same thing about the Earth. In fact, Alan Stern likes to point out that the Earth has all these near-Earth asteroids that are in its orbit. The thing is, though, if you look at the first eight planets now, the official planets, Mercury on out to Neptune, if you add up the mass of all those other objects that quote-unquote share the orbit of those objects, its mass is minuscule compared to the planet itself. If you look at Pluto, that is not the case. I love Pluto. I would love for Pluto to be a planet, but at the same time, I don't want to have to memorize 50 billion fucking planets. In the solar system.
That should be an excuse.
What?
Just because you don't want to memorize something. Jack says, what about Earth and Moon as a binary planet?
Oh, we're going to get there.
We're going to get there, Jack. All right. So if you add up all the other objects that share Pluto's orbit, that are near Pluto's orbit, it has a mass greater than Pluto. And so Pluto hasn't cleared its orbit.
What do you happen to know that mass amounts of the stuff around Pluto? Because, like, for example, one of the problems. So that last definition of clearing out its neighborhood is an absolute trash phrase. It just doesn't make any sense. So, for example, if you move the Earth out to where Pluto is, for example, I'm sure it still have a huge amount of debris in the way. As a matter of fact, so does Neptune, because Neptune and Pluto cross each other's orbits. So even in that way. So I was listening to a debate by Alan Stern and someone that's representing the IAU. And the IAU guy kind of goes in depth onto what they meant about clearing its neighborhood. He said that they were trying just to find a simple explanation, a simple definition, so as not to confuse people. But when you're talking about, nomenclature, scientific terms, you kind of got to be specific. So what he said is that his skeleton to do it, but that it wasn't necessarily having stuff in the orbit. It was just making sure that the object, the planet, gravitationally impacted all the other stuff within its orbits. So, for example, the Trojan asteroids with Jupiter, they're there because of Jupiter's gravity. Whereas all the trans-Neptunian objects around Pluto's orbit, if Pluto stopped being there, they would still hang out no problem.
Yep.
Yeah, so that kind of is a better definition rather than just saying clearing the orbit, but having a gravitational impact on the objects within its orbits. I think that makes more sense.
Yep. No, I completely agree with that. And I mean, like people like to point out, well, if the Earth were at Pluto's orbit, it would not have cleared its orbit, and therefore it wouldn't be a planet. Yeah. So I actually have no problem with that. I mean, it's pretty arrogant for us to say, hey, we have to live on a fucking planet. It has to be a planet. You know what? The Ewoks are doing pretty good on their little moon.
Well, I don't know about that. Oh,
that's a drink.
Well, they were doing okay.
But I had something I was gonna say, and then you did the Star Wars reference, and I just totally lost it.
I'm sorry.
Man, it was gonna be so smart too.
Well, it's I don't care if you call the Earth a planet, a moon, or whatever. I mean, if it's out at Pluto and it hasn't done what it needs to do in these 4.5 billion years to gravitationally influence its orbit, to quote unquote clear its orbit, whatever you want to call it, then don't call it a planet. And I do think that the at its most basic level, and I said this last time in the Hangout, the Pluto story is the story of science. And as we learn more, we reclassify things, and we should not get hung up on what we call things. So if we change the definition of Pluto, we shouldn't be having our hair on fire because we're no longer calling it a planet. Pluto doesn't care what you call it. It's still going to go around the sun.
Pluto is unaffected.
And you know what?
Only thing unaffected by this.
Yeah, I know, right? Just does not care. And as we learn more, our definitions of things are going to change. And it could be that in 50 years that Pluto comes back and is, a planet again by our definition.
It's gonna go to the gym, beef up, clear out its orbit. Take care of yourself, Pluto.
We're gonna beat up some comets. Then I can finally be a planet.
So, but I really, if you would have asked me when I graduated from high school, Pluto's a damn planet. It's the 9th planet. Because we only know about 9 of these things. But we have since learned of the existence of a lot more objects that are like Pluto. And it forced us to confront the definition of what a planet was. And we were doing fine up until we found one. I say we, like I was involved. Astronomers found an object that they thought was bigger. And so then it forced them to define what a planet is. Because up until August, all the way up to August 23rd, 2006, there was no definition for a planet.
That's true. Yeah. It's kind of like they found that larger what they thought was a larger object at the time.
Yeah,
like,
Eris.
Well, is it a planet? Well, Wait, what is a planet? Oh,
and
shit.
Even, and even the I almost called it the planet. The asteroid Ceres, when it was first discovered, was called a planet as well because it was just this big thing we found in the asteroid belt. Of course, it's round as well, but it being in the asteroid belt has no chance of clearing its orbit, or gravitationally impacting all the objects within the asteroid belt.
Yeah, and if you're going to call Pluto a planet, you're going to have to call it a planet. And then, is Vesta actually round?
I think it's roundish.
Okay, well then you might have to call it a planet, and then you have to
in the same way like football's round.
Then you have to define what is the minimum roundness an object can be, right? So,
360
on that. So Alan Stern, the Pluto guy, he got together with some of his friends as well and submitted a separate definition of what a Pluto was, what a planet is. And apparently Mike disagrees with this because we have two different things that Alan Stern said.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I know, gasp. So they call it the geophysical planet definition, or GPD. Okay. And according to them, there are two rules. Planet is a substellar mass body that has never undergone nuclear fusion.
Okay.
So that's very broad.
So brown dwarfs can fall into this.
And like me, I've never undergone nuclear fusion, so I could be a planet. But then there's definition number 2.
You're not substellar mass, Brandon.
I am well substellar mass.
I'm stellar mass.
You're a star.
I've weighed myself recently. I'm stellar mass.
Anyway, so part 2 of that. Part 2 of the definition is that it has sufficient self-gravitation to assume a spheroidal shape adequately described, and I don't know what this phrase is, by a triaxial ellipsoid, regardless of its orbital parameters.
3 axes, X, Y, Z.
What is happening right now? X, Y, Z.
So that it looks like a sphere, X, Y, and Z.
So basically, it has to be a round object.
It has to be a round object.
I gotta write this shit in English.
We can't do that.
Well, I mean, that's how the IAU got into trouble with their trash clearing its orbit. Everyone knows what that means, but it doesn't make any sense. So they had to go a little
makes
more
more sense than whatever letters came out of your mouth.
Triaxial ellipsoid.
Look, I actually don't. If Alan Stern, by the way, Alan Stern, amazing guy. Look him up. Oh, yeah. He's got a lot of history. No, I actually, if Alan Stern comes up with a good scientific definition for a planet, I have no problem with that. The problem with Alan Stern's definition of a planet is it's really quite broad. Mm-hmm. Now, I am saying this as if I am in the debate. I am not in the debate at all. Nobody is going to listen to me. But
your opinion matters in no way whatsoever.
Or maybe we create a cultural movement here in this podcast and get things changed that way. Grassroots campaign.
Yeah. As a guy who likes to sit on the couch, play video games, and watch TV, they aren't going to listen to me. Like the way Brandon goes, true.
Yeah, those are things I like to do too.
Yeah, but if he comes up with a good scientific definition, I have no problem with it whatsoever. And as long as it becomes a consensus within astronomy, as that this is what a planet is, or geoastronomy, whatever you want to call it, the discipline of astronomy and physics. But what you just said, though, is really quite broad, in that basically something that we call a brown dwarf can be a planet. So are we getting rid of brown dwarfs? But I guess brown dwarfs could possibly have some nuclear fusion that's going on, but not like a star.
A brown dwarf isn't a very descriptive term for what it is.
No, it's not. Yeah, it could be a small asteroid, but it's not. Yeah.
It's a failed star. For those of you that don't know what a brown dwarf is, it's a failed star. Didn't quite have enough mass to ignite nuclear fusion, so to speak.
I feel like a failed star sometimes, so I got you, brown dwarfs. But so you had talked about the definition being scientific agreement, that we all agree that this is the definition, IAU. But when they actually went to make this definition, they didn't have any planetary scientists on board.
No,
The experts themselves didn't necessarily even make the rules. They had other people come in.
Yeah, I'm not. I have never said that the process that happened in 2006 was perfect. No, it was completely flawed. And there is a guy in the planetarium field who's a real pain in the ass, in my opinion.
Is it Jack?
No, it's not Jack. I'm not going to say anything because I don't know. I don't know if Jack is friends with him or not. But anyway, I did agree with this person in the planetarium field when they would say it was a very flawed process. It was very flawed. It was on the very last day. A lot of people had already left to go home from this conference, and they didn't vote. They didn't vote. And so, but at least it was a step in the direction of defining what a planet is in our solar system. The hope was going to be that 2 years later, however, I think it's 2 years, might be 4 years, that the IAU meets, that they would improve upon that definition and actually freaking quantify it. You can throw out words all day long, but
triaxial ellipsoid.
But it's actually a good word. But in science, or at least in physics, you have to quantify something. You can say clear its orbit, but then you have to say what that means. Mm-hmm. When you look at Kepler's laws of planetary motion, he defines things. There's a mathematical definition to all three of his laws. Mm-hmm. And if you're not familiar with the laws, it is planets go anything that orbits the sun is going to go in an ellipse. So planets orbit the sun in an ellipse. The equal areas and equal times. So if you take a look at the area that a planet has swept out in 3 weeks, 6 months later, take a look at the area it sweeps out in that 3-week period, it's the same area. And also that the period that how long it takes for a planet to go around the sun is proportional to how far away from the sun it is. All of these have mathematical definitions behind them. The IAU definition does not, and they have left it up to other astronomers to come up with definitions as to what it means to clear its orbit. Well, let me say that the first two actually do have mathematics behind it. That it has to go around the sun, mm-hmm. which is you're bringing Kepler into that. Mm-hmm. And then for the second one, where it has to be round, where it has to overcome these rigid static body forces and assume
equilibrium.
Yeah, to assume the lowest energy state, which is a sphere or spheroid. There's math behind that. But the third part, no. But it's interesting that Alan Stern is such a proponent for Pluto to be a planet when he worked with Harold Levinson to actually come up with a number that defines how well an object has cleared its orbit. They called it lambda. So
lambda.
Right. But it has to do with it's this equation that has to do with the mass of the planet candidate, how far away it is from the sun, and this letter called K, which has to do with how well small bodies can be deflected by these planet-sized objects. And Pluto's not a planet by his own little number there. So, yeah.
That was a lot of math.
Yeah.
I'm just smiling and nodding with you at this point.
I know.
I'm like, all right.
It's whatever. I mean, it's
like
that's the way science works, though.
Yeah.
But that's the way science works in physics. That there has to be math behind it, and I'm just telling you what my issue is with the IAU definition, is that the third part is toothless.
Yes. I think that's everyone's issue. That third part is toothless. It's trash. It's garbage. It's dumb.
It
No,
sucks.
I don't. I know.
Ah!
Okay, it's not dumb. It's not dumb at all. It's just that there's no way that you can make a prediction from it. But it's not dumb at all. It might be poorly worded.
Misguided?
No, it's not even misguided. It might be poorly worded.
Misguided.
But it is but you need something that separates a planet from say something like Ceres. If you're not going to call Ceres a planet because it's an asteroid, well then how do you say Pluto is a planet and Ceres is not?
I have a couple good questions here from Twitch, which are not in chat. They've been texted to me that Adam has. So thank you. How flat is the solar system in terms of it being a disk? And this segues to a point I also want to make about Pluto. And what kind of constants are there for planets like rotating the same way and direction? Which are good questions. So the solar system, it's on all the planets are on the same plane.
I'm sorry, I just can't help but think the Nirvana song. I'm on a plane.
I'm on a plane.
I can't complain.
What a weird show. Anyway. So the solar system, all the planets, they're on the same plane, which is relatively thin, so to speak. However, there is a former planet that actually doesn't fall on the same plane. It's tilted about, 5 degrees?
Oh, it's more than that.
20 degrees
I think
off
it's
the plane
20
of our
degrees.
solar system. And that is Pluto. So what that kind of indicates is that Pluto maybe didn't form at the same time as the rest of the planets in the solar system, or it was something that got knocked out. And so then that also makes it irregular too.
Well, I mean, if somehow in the primordial solar system, the Earth got knocked out of its orbit and was tilted as well, I would think the size and influence on its orbit would still be classified as planets. But you're right; it is just makes
it's a side
Pluto
planet.
Kind of oddball. A side planet. You got your main planet, right, and your side planet.
Side planet.
Your side planet.
And then constants for being a planet, I would say, and that I think is where you can get into the even further classification of planets, or what a planet could be or should be, is because the planets that we know of so far, I mean, really the only constant to them is that they directly orbit the sun and they're spherical and have apparently majorly cleaned out their orbits.
But also to what Adam was asking about is direction of orbit. They all orbit in the same direction. So if you're looking down at the sun from the North Pole, it's all counterclockwise, I believe.
Yeah.
So
yes.
And that does have to do with that primordial gas cloud that formed the solar system and the sun and the solar system. And as it collapsed down, it became flat. And that's why all the planets are in the same plane, and it was rotating. And so all the planets continued in that direction. And if we had a planet that was going in the opposite direction, which is called retrograde motion, two things that we would know about that planet. First of all, it would not be from our solar system. Our sun would have captured it. And second of all, it is doomed to die. Yep. So,
wow.
Yep.
Wasn't expecting that. Just real downturn of events.
Yep.
Okay. How's it going to die?
Well, as it goes around the sun in the opposite direction, the sun actually steals energy. The sun actually steals energy from it and slows it down. And that is why when you look at, I believe it is Neptune with its moon Triton. Triton is going around in retrograde motion. And so it is in this death spiral, and it will eventually fall into Neptune. So this planet going in retrograde motion around the sun would fall into the sun.
So does that mean, and this is we're still talking about planets. So does this mean that Triton is going to form rings around Neptune?
Yeah, it'll add to the rings of Neptune. Neptune has little ringlets, and it'll add to the rings. Because as it gets closer, it eventually will get ripped apart by Neptune's gravity.
That's neat.
Oh man,
that's
physics.
So sci-fi cool.
That's cool. That's cool. But so yeah, and just like with the planet consistency though, I mean, you have planets with rings, you have planets that are gas, you have planets that are rock, you have planets that are, you know, have trees on them. You have
the trees that we're all cutting down all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, planets with moons, planets without moon. You know, it's like there's a lot of different characteristics to planets themselves. They really only fit where they orbit the sun and are spherical. Yeah. That's the main consistency of the spherical.
Each planet is unique.
Each planet is unique.
So,
and then there's also the possibility of characteristics of binary planets, which is really cool. So if somebody were to label Pluto as a planet, you probably have to label its largest moon, Charon, as a planet as well. So it's so large in mass compared to Pluto that its barycenter, which is the point where both Pluto and Charon orbit each other, the barycenter is outside of Pluto. So in my mind, if I'm categorizing what makes a binary planet, it is that barycenter, if it's within the main planet or outside of the main planet. So for example, some folks are on board calling the moon and the Earth a binary system, which would be kind of cool just to say. But this barycenter is comfortably within the Earth, so we're not orbiting a point outside of it.
Right, and so by that I would say that it's not a binary planet, but it's not up for me to say. But in my opinion, it's not a binary planet. Pluto, you know, back when it was the planet on August 23rd, 2006, you know, binary planet. Those two, Pluto and Charon, however you want to say it, they're tidally locked. So they actually rotate. So if you are on the far side of Pluto from the moon, you would never see it.
Wow.
Ever. So they're tidally locked with each other.
Imagine
I love the
not
idea.
knowing that the moon exists. Yeah.
I love the idea of some Plutonian guy living on, that far side without Charon, and just hearing legends of this orbiting giants. Like, that's bullshit. There's no way that actually exists. Look at this.
Never seen
that.
And
I actually speaking of like conspiracy theories on Pluto, if you were on Pluto, I actually think that this definition, reorganizing Pluto from a planet to whatever class it's at now, has brought so much more attention to Pluto than otherwise would have happened. Like, everyone has an opinion that Pluto's a planet because I grew up with it, so people are aware of it. They're just bringing it more into the news. So I actually think it's a good thing that this definition change happened for Pluto, because it's gotten way more attention. Even with New Horizons passing by, it's always in like the cultural, what do you want to call it?
Peripheral?
Culture. Yeah, there you go. Oh, look at you. That's good.
I made a word.
Yeah, it's always there. People are aware of it. So it's a good thing it was changed, just so people know more about Pluto.
Well, and then think about
conspiracy of nerds.
And then be able to then start thinking about, what is a planet, and what are the planets, and what are the moons, what else is out there, and it just gets people, I think, thinking about astronomy more in itself, and our universe, and hopefully helps to like kind of open people's minds to greater things out there.
So
I agree.
Thanks.
And I have one last kind of question to ask, but do you guys have any closing thoughts on what is a planet? I think this was a really good conversation.
Are we done?
I mean, we've gone over 45 minutes now, right?
Has it been that long? Jeez.
Sure. I only have 2:40 on the clock, but go ahead.
Right.
What's your question?
Yeah.
Because the question is going to last 15 minutes.
That's true. And then we're gonna do the hangover. So okay. Yeah. We seem to be on time.
What is your favorite planet, both real and fictional?
Oh my God. Why? What?
Talk about planets. And we're going to withhold the rules about drinking for Star Wars references, because that could be intense.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, I mean, okay.
Now I got to think about all the space planets and sci-fi movies.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. For the purposes of this question, you can't say Earth.
Fuck the Earth.
Well, it's 2020, right?
Fuck this place. Dumpster fire of a planet.
All right. This is tough because
I don't know my fake planets.
well, you know, for the planets in the solar system, I love Saturn because it's really with the rings, is incredible, it's spectacular, it's amazing. But I do love Mars. That desolation of Mars is quite beautiful, and what we're learning from it. And not a planet anymore, but I do like Pluto. Pluto is an amazing world. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pluto turns out it's pretty awesome.
Still not a planet.
So
though.
wait a minute. You can talk about Tatooine and Bespin, not any planet, and you'll still saying Pluto is up there. All right.
Well, I said it wasn't a planet anymore.
Oh, okay.
Right.
You're not going with a fictional one?
Oh God, I can't think of a fictional one. Yeah, I just can't think of a good fictional one right now. All of them.
That's
Vulcan.
Good.
Middle Earth.
Yeah, whatever planet Middle Earth is on.
That's technically Earth. So you have some notes
New Zealand.
Wrote. He was trying to make an origin story for England and kind of the world. He came up on Middle Earth. So at some point, he was trying to figure out how to tie Middle Earth into our current age and like what that transition would be like. Never got around to it, but it's just a fun little thought.
And that was a little bit of J.R.R. Tolkien history with Brandon Riddle.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all my Clone Wars planets that we have seen. Brandon, what's yours?
I don't know. I know. I should say this. I just thought of it while we were talking. I thought this is a fun little question to ask.
Oh my god!
So I have a book here that I read over a year ago now called The Fifth Season, and it's a science fiction book. And this planet goes through cataclysmic events, either once every few years or once every 100 years. And by like opening up this massive volcano or somehow changing incredible seasons, it destroys vast amount of people. And I just love that idea of a live planet just wiping people out, almost like clockwork, every so often. That's kind of cool.
2020 here, wiping us out.
Wow.
Jack's favorite planets are Jupiter, is real, and fictional would be Star Trek's Risa. That's like having a vacation.
The pleasure planets, Risa. Oh, well, I've been thinking about Star Trek planets.
That's what I was like. There's too many fictional planets out there.
Yeah, you got Star Wars, you got, Star Trek. I mean, it's just Firefly. I mean, you got all kinds of fictional planets out there.
Yeah. I think Mars, I'll say Mars is my favorite planet because it's the only planet in our solar system fully inhabited by robots.
Yeah. I knew where you're going with that.
Because I like to say that. It's so much fun.
Well, I mean, Venus has a dead robot on it.
Doesn't count.
Actually, it has 2 dead robots on it.
Well, Mars has more robots, and they're alive.
And one of them's alive.
Yeah.
And another one's on its way.
At least one of them's alive.
And one of them will have a helicopter.
I'm so excited.
And it gets there in February, folks. So,
Mimosas in Mars.
Yeah, we should do something for the landing. Mimosas in Mars.
Okay. Mimosas in Mars. I like that.
I'm up for it. Yeah.
All right. Well, should we wrap this up and then go into the hangover?
Let's do it.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us, guys. Hope you enjoyed our planetary discussion as to what a planet is.
We debated it today. There's no answer to it.
Okay,
right now.
So basically, in conclusion, what is a planet? We don't know, and we haven't decided yet. So,
but it is a conspiracy to get Pluto more attention.
But we do have a better definition than we did 14 years ago.
True.
But I will say this. Pluto's not a planet, but I do love it. And with that, Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on Cosmos with Cosmos. Stick around. We're gonna keep talking in the Hangover with Cosmos.
Where
with
we could talk about anything.
But follow us on all the social medias at Drinking Cosmos on Twitter, at Cosmos with Cosmos on Instagram, and then you can listen to us on Anchor.fm and Apple Podcasts and all the Spotify, all the podcast
all the things.
All the things. So we'll see you around. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Adios.